Well, Razorback fans, let's do the whole what if game once again here on a What If Wednesday. It's been a lot of positivity, but let's ask the very possible question of what if the John Calipari experience fails at Arkansas?
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday, as I know people are just chomping at the bit and waiting on Razorback basketball news to transpire, which, who knows, maybe by the time you listen to this podcast, something popped off. But it is always fun to talk about basketball and get into some interesting things, which I have done What If Wednesdays on occasion, and I'm going to do it here, and I'll probably do it on my show. But I think it's a question that's worth asking, because it's been nothing but positivity for Arkansas basketball, and rightfully so. You have John Calipari as your head coach. The attention and the excitement has never been higher, at least not in quite some time. But let's just play the devil's advocate. Some of you are going to get mad about this, but it's just a what-if game. I don't believe this. I don't think this is going to happen. But what if it does? What if the John Calipari experience fails? What if at Arkansas he comes in and it goes horribly, goes badly, doesn't work out, doesn't pan out, isn't what it needs to be? What happens? Well, that is a scenario that I don't want to look at, but we need to. What if it does? Well, let's look at how it would look as far as failure goes. What's failure? What does it mean for Arkansas and Razorback basketball if it fails? Well, to me, failure for John Calipari is not making the NCAA tournament. That's failure. If in year one at Arkansas, if he does not make the NCAA tournament, that is failure. And that's going to be sending people into DEFCON 1 or DEFCON 5. I always forget which one's the DEFCON. It's going to send them into a panic mode and a lot of frustrations and a lot of anger and angst if that happens. Because with the expectation that's been set, it's fair to say that not making the NCAA tournament is not an option. It's not an option. You cannot go any amount of years without making the NCAA tournament at Arkansas. If you get one every so often, But in year one under Cal, with this amount of money, with this amount of NIL, you can't do it. So to me, that's what failure would look like for Razorback basketball, not making the NCAA tournament. Because once you get into the NCAA tournament, I've said this all the time, I think you all understand, you never know. You never know. It could be something that you lose to a St. Peter's or an Oakland, like Kentucky has. You could lose as a 1 seed. It's happened. I mean, look at Purdue. They played in the national championship game this past year. And the year before that, they lost to a 16 seed. Crazy stuff happens. So I'm never going to say it's an epic failure if you lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's not good. It's not ideal. It's not fun. But it's a crapshoot in the NCAA tournament. It happens every single year. You just hope that you're not one of the teams it happens to, which luckily, knock on wood, Arkansas has not been upset in the NCAA tournament in a long time, not even this millennium. Granted, they haven't been to the tournament as many times as they should have. But still, that to me is failure. And if that happens, I look at it in the perspective of this season. If Arkansas does not make the tournament this season, suddenly everything gets revved up to 1,000,000 because all this pomp, all of this circumstance, all of this goodwill, these good vibes, these good feelings, everything goes clean out the window. None of it matters if you fail and miss the NCAA tournament. Because now everybody, like those Kentucky fans that were making fun of you and yelling at you, and you were coming back and be like, okay, go over there with your coach that's never won an NCAA tournament game and be excited about it. Suddenly that changes everything because they look to be right. And there is nothing worse than a crazy, passionate fan base in their minds being proven right, because they will let you hear about it and they will crow about it till the cows come home. You're going to have to hear about it if that happens. Everyone's going to say Calipari is washed. He ain't the coach anymore. It was bad enough at Kentucky where he didn't make it past the second or the first weekend since 2019, so in a 5-season span roughly. He didn't make it to the second weekend, and now he's missing on the NCAA tournament. He's done. He's washed. It's over with. It's also going to be really tough to recover from that in the recruiting landscape, because now everyone's looking at Calipari, and Arkansas is like, okay, well, I want to win a championship, and I want to be able to get to the next level in the NBA, but if they're not even competing for a championship, not even going to the tournament, and they had NBA players, what's that going to do for me? How's that going to look for my development? Suddenly, they start turning away. Other schools start negatively recruiting against you, which can always be an extremely powerful thing that nobody wants to deal with. Things like that start popping up. And that's just from the outside looking in. You, Razorback fans, as well as me, someone who has been very high on this hire and everything, start to really backtrack on a lot. We start to look at it as like, okay, maybe we got this completely wrong. We just spent way too much money, donated way too much NIL, and got way too excited about trash. And how do we recover from this? How do we pay a coach this amount of money and provide him this much NIL and not even be in the big dance? This is it's incomprehensible. It's like you just cannot even fathom something like this happening. And unless year 2 would change everybody's mind, like they get back to the tournament and they go far into the tournament, it will be hard to bring that back. It'll be hard to get fans back into the mix and feel good and confident about the rest. Because right now, everyone's looking at you, Arkansas. You got a bullseye on you. You're being targeted by everyone. Everyone hates Cal. If you don't believe me, ask yourself what you felt about Calipari 2 weeks ago. Everyone hates Cal. College basketball hates Cal. And they hated Kentucky because of Cal. All right? Now you're public enemy number 1. Everyone hates you because you got Cal. You got arrogance. You got cockiness. You got money. You got NIL. You got it all going for you. So people are rooting for you to fail, and they want to show you how badly you're failing by beating you. And when they do, they're going to let you hear about it. Like, it is going to be that level of craziness that you're all going to have to deal with and have to navigate through. Not saying it's a majorly a bad thing, but it's just the facts. Like, you're going to deal with that each and every game this season. So if you lose a game on the road in a tough environment by 1 point to a team you should beat, you're going to hear about that anyways. But that's just one little moment that happens in college basketball all the time. But if you have a bad year, if you have a bad season, if you go through a stretch where you're not good and everyone's beating you, they're going to laugh at you, they're going to come at you, and they are going to make you hear about it. It's going to make you even madder. I want to reiterate, I don't believe this is going to happen. I'm not predicting this is going to happen. But I like to look at all phases and all different possible outcomes that could be happening. And as far and as unlikely as it is, there's always that small little chance that this could be an epic failure. I hope it's not. I don't want to deal with it. But people are going to be rooting for you to fail. So what happens if the Calipari experiment fails? Well, you move on. You know? Say if it fails and it fails miserably, you move on. People know and see how much money you're willing to pay into the NIL. People willing to see how much you're willing to pay a coach. People see the type of program that you are, that even if Calipari doesn't work out, you're still going to have plenty of suitors coming to you for this job. Because it's not going to be because of Arkansas that Calipari fails. It's going to be because of Calipari that Calipari fails. You got everything you need. It's up to him to be able to use it in the right way to breed success. So what if it happens? You move on. Take your lumps and you move on. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I want to talk a little bit about Bud Walton, though, here in just a little bit, folks. But you heard me talk about it yesterday, and I'm going to talk about it once again today. We're all pretty competitive. We're sports fans, right? We're all very competitive. And when it comes to competitiveness, we like to be on top of everything. So I need you to listen up to this huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on all the scores, putting my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce that I'm finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game, Monopoly Go, because you probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. And it's a great mobile twist on the classic Monopoly game where you can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on iconic properties, just like on classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent on those iconic properties, or go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heist and taking wrecking balls to the nearest landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's just going to go bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts and download Monopoly Go right now for free on the App Store as well as on Google Play.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. This was a question that was actually asked towards Hunter Yurchek, the athletic director of Arkansas, about Bud Walton and the renovations that have been planned for. I think it was like a $33 million renovation being put forth for Bud Walton, somewhere in that ballpark, and some facelifts that it needs. And how that's going to change now that Calipari is the head coach, the amount of money that you're paying into him and his salary and NIL and everything. Like, how is that going to change it, or does it change it? And I think Yurchek was very poignant and kind of saying, like, it's still something that needs to be done. Still needs something to be moved forward on. But as I've told many of you in talking about how renovations and facilities and the big money that's been spent on them needs to be taken to hiatus because of the amount of money that you need to put forth towards NIL instead. This is something to where you got to balance it out. I love Bud Walton Arena. Bud Walton Arena is iconic. It's legendary. I have said many times that if you gave me a packed-out Razorback Stadium, a packed-out Baum-Walker Stadium, or a packed-out Bud Walton, give me Bud Walton every time. There's something special about it. The energy, how loud it gets, it's incredible. And it's amazing, folks, that it is a 30-year-old building. It's had a couple of changes here and there. Courtside seating's been added. The Jumbotron television screen's been changed a little bit to make it more up-to-date. But besides that, everything's kind of remained the same. The chairs, the seating in Bud Walton remain the same. The suites remain the same. Even if you go down into the corridors where the press conference room is and some of the locker rooms and everything, locker rooms have gotten updated, but the outside of it, the walls, it's like the same paint, the same logos, the same everything that's been down there since 1993. That could be good. That could be bad. That could be one thing. But it doesn't matter because you need to always stay on top of it regardless of the need for facilities or not. My whole thing with Bud Walton is I'm okay with making changes. I understand it. I'm okay with if you want to add in courtside seating more so, if you want to add in loge boxes, if you want to add in more suites, because I'll say it, the suites in Bud Walton Arena are lacking a little bit. They could use some help. Because if people are spending that much money to be able to go to these games, you either want to be closer to the action or you want to have a better setup, a bigger suite, whatever. There's like always little adjustments you can make. And for those of you who don't have suites, you probably don't care what I'm saying. But You got to be able to make some adjustments and make it a little bit better, a little bit nicer, a little bit more friendly to the users of those sweet boxes and of those loge boxes. So I'm all about that. Stay with me on this. I am even okay taking out some general admission seating. Hold on. If it means that there can be standing room only seats, I think that would be a really cool thing. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if they're even looking at that, but I think that would be really cool, almost to have like a bar set up like they have it at the rooftop in the north end zone in Razorback football, something like that, like an area, just one area where you can kind of see the game. You're up top, you're up high, but you got a full bar, you got TVs, you got cool setup. I'd even be okay with that. But the most important thing, and it's easier said than done, but the most important thing that you cannot do or have or change is the spirit of Barnhill that's made its way into Bud Walton. That was the thing that they had in the very first official, the first official game, but that game against Missouri in 1993 when Arkansas beat them by 58 points. They had this crystal ball as the spirit of Barnhill. Whereas the last game there against LSU and Barnhill transitioned into that bowl there, Bud Walton, and it has transitioned greatly. There are not many facilities to where Barnhill, I didn't go to any games there, I'll be honest, but hearing the stories about Barnhill, how it was built and how it was done and how loud it was and the energy, to try and replicate that by over doubling the size in a new venue is really tough to do. But Arkansas did it. Bud Walton is that place. There's not many places that get louder than that. I've talked to so many people, outsiders that come into Bud Walton for their teams and whatnot, and they are stunned. Not only by how loud it is and by the energy, but the size of it. Like, there's people up there next to the chain link fences up at the top who are just as loud as the person down below. You can't change the spirit. Don't do too much to try to do new age things. I don't think Yurachek will do that. I don't think the U of A will do that. It needs help. It needs a facelift, but you need to be careful. Be careful in keeping that still intact while also doing what's right and having ways to improve the facility. That's really important too. Folks, let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, which is ridiculous, but you got to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? Well, with Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help you reach that type of financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data in one place, guaranteed. They're the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. A lot of you are talking about, with spring football. I talked a little bit about it already this week, and it's kind of coming to an end. You got some guys entering into the portal and all of that. But I have talked to so many of you about spring football, and baseball's exciting right now. Right? I know that they're no longer #1; they're #2. So we'll see what they do against Texas Tech in the midweek. But people haven't gotten into that mode just yet for baseball. They're paying attention to it. Crowds are there, but going all in on baseball, that's still another month or so away. But spring football is so lukewarm right now. Football in general is so lukewarm. I did a spot on Matt Moscona's show at ESPN Baton Rouge yesterday, and he asked me about the spring football and how people are feeling it. I'm like, it's secondary. People don't care right now. Now, they will once football season actually gets closer, because they always do. But right now, it's just kind of, okay. Hey, man, I'm really excited about this quarterback. Taylor Green looks, okay. Dude, I'm telling you right now, these tight ends, they're going to be game changer. Okay. Like, I don't know if I think it's all this accumulation of everything. It's the excitement of basketball and baseball in the spring that's really driven a lot of people from that. But it's also the element of coming off a 4-8 season after going 7-6. Sam Pittman's still your head coach. Even the Bobby Petringo pop added some, but it's still kind of like, be like new and shiny things. And Arkansas football right now is not new and it's not shiny. It could be better. It could be improved. It could be something nice. But right now, until we see actual games take place and get on the field and actually put some things together, it's kind of just like, okay, there's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do. There's no one you can add. There's nothing that can go on to make you feel like, as a Razorback fan, boom, football, baby. Yeah, let's go. It's nothing like that happening. So maybe one day it gets to that during the spring. Maybe one day when we get there in the middle of July and we go to SEC Media Days, things start changing. Maybe, just maybe that happens. But as of right now, there's just no pop. But that's okay. That's okay. I would rather be excited about basketball right now and baseball right now and be surprised by football than be totally excited about football or forcing myself to be excited about football because that's all you got. And that's all you got to look forward to. So I'll take this type of scenario and this type of situation all day long and twice on Sunday. Appreciate everybody listening into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.